Hey everybody, it's Tripl-L coming in for chapter 299 of My Hero Academia. It's a great time to be here. Anyway, I'm hoping this video got up to the channel by Monday night. I am recording it on Monday afternoon. Did not record yesterday, was not feeling up to it. I'm feeling a bit better today, and now we're here. We're going to talk about it. Now, this is one of those videos where I have to start by saying that just because I have criticisms of it does not mean that I think that anyone that likes this chapter is dumb or anything like that. No, it's just a matter of opinion, right? This is one of those videos where I have to say the value of a review like this, I think it's to maybe alert you to a different perspective or to maybe give you like the heads up as to why someone might dislike something. But I do believe it's still worth pointing out what I think are weaknesses. And I have to again emphasize the I think. This is ultimately my opinion, and I will try to do my best to give you guys the step-by-step process as to why I believe the things I do. As we go into this video, what I want you to know is that I'm not making arguments for this being bad or anything like that. My arguments are going to be centered on the amounts of conveniences that occurred in this chapter and what that ultimately means for the series. And I think that when we look at it from the perspective of conveniences, I think maybe the majority of us could agree on some little things here. But I think this is going to be a really interesting video because usually when we have a lot of technical things to talk about, it's going to be pretty cool. Now, that said, we have to chat about the nature of this chapter. This chapter is very odd. My first gut instinct after reading years and years of Shonen Jump series, when I look at this chapter, it feels like artificial delay. And when I say artificial delay, I mean, I feel like Horikoshi might have wanted to do something special for 300, and he's using this chapter to give himself the buffer room to push whatever event he's concerned about into 300. My rationale for that is thus. The chapter itself is constructed where you could have slotted it anywhere in this let's call it the reflection arc or the fallout arc, the fallout of the war. You could have slotted it anywhere. You could have put it before last week's chapter. You could have put it like during the 2-day period because we know 2 days have passed. You could have put that thing anywhere. And when you look at the chapter, it's actually really standalone. Look at the chapter and realize that they don't really tell you what time period we're in. We're probably like right in the same time period as what's going on in the hospital right now. The nature of that, the way it's so disconnected from the rest of the series right now, or the way it's so disconnected from the kids plot, it ultimately is a very easy chapter to work with. And now unfortunately the thing is that it throws off the momentum of what was going on last week, but when you're reading it in a volume format, it's probably going to be alright. So with regards to this chapter in particular, it is a Fallout chapter. What this chapter is here to do is to start justifying some of the weird moves that occurred in the previous arc. And you can see that there. When they're talking about like, oh, hey man, so lucky you got into Central Hospital, otherwise you'd be dead. And when we're talking about, oh man, how did Dobby find out? When we're talking about all those things, this is a chapter of answers. And this is the thing that makes this chapter so much more ripe for criticism. It's because now we can play the game of, Horikoshi, are these answers actually worthwhile? Are these answers actually good? And for me personally, if I was to be the most cynical me that I could be for this particular situation, I would say that I believe this is the chapter that, worst case scenario, is going to be the chapter that indicates a shift in Hero Academia and the way it tells its story. Because if I was to be the most cynical me, I would say this is a chapter where the needs of the story and the capabilities of characters are starting to come into conflict. And what that ultimately means is, at this point going forward, I think it's a little, well, me myself, not being cynical, I think it's a little bit more likely that people are going to start questioning why certain characters didn't do something a certain way given their history. Now, before we get to that conversation, I do want to start off on a light note, and that is Dobby. Because, man, I had a great conversation with a commenter on the live stream, Lotad, if you're there. Hello, Lotad. But Lotad was just like a gift from God that day. It just made me feel so good. Because Lotad came in, and Lotad, you know, was not happy about the situation with Hawks. Because it looks like Hawks is going to get his wings back. I'm going to paraphrase, and apologies, Lotad, if I paraphrase, but the situation was such that, you know, Hawks is getting his wings back, and in doing that, it's kind of, it made Lotad feel bad because it devalues Dobby's contribution. It devalues Dobby's fire. And I saw that, and initially I was like, what? I don't get it. Devalue? How can you devalue someone who has no value? I was like, I had to take a step back because me with my Dobby goggles, I couldn't get into it. But actually, jokes aside, yeah, no, I was really happy. Like I told Lotad, you kind of red pilled yourself. Like, yeah, you just realized you get it now. And to that note, from the live streams, we were able to understand that there was a reaction on like Twitter, because Twitter always has the reaction of people being upset that Hawks was getting his wings back because it had the stakes. And then like you also have what Lotad mentioned there about the devaluing of Dobby, and it really just brought things into perspective. Like, yes, it was a really funny moment for the live stream, and I love everyone that was there to witness it and all that kind of stuff. But this is the reality of the situation when it comes to Dobby. If people are getting mad at Hawks for having his wings back because it insults Dobby, then I don't know what to tell you. Actually, I could tell you I'm looking forward to the future, because the reality is Dobby's a joke. As people pointed out in the live stream, Dobby couldn't burn a man that's made of wood. What is that other than a joke, right? And that's the big thing here. If people are getting mad because Hawks having his wings back, or the potential of Hawks getting his wings back, devalues Dobby, then I believe you've made a fundamental misread on Dobby's value here. Like, this is par for the course for Dobby in my sense. Even in this chapter actually ends up vindicating Dobby a little bit and making him like seem a little bit more reasonable. But it's ultimately very funny. It was still one of the greatest moments on that stream. I had so much fun with that, and that was a really fun stream too, guys. So and of course, a big thank you to everyone that was on the stream. Anyway, with the Dobby bit out of the way, let's get into the general discussion that I was hyping up, starting with conveniences. So this is how this is going to work here. This is a chapter of fallouts, and I'm just going to start pointing it out. This chapter makes a big deal about the #1 hospital, Central Hospital, and how they were able to come up with a surgery that they were able to apply to Best Jeanist. And the first thing I was thinking was, isn't it convenient that the #1 hospital in Japan, Central Hospital, isn't it convenient that neither All For One nor the doctor had any kind of connection to this hospital? Isn't it convenient that the doctor, being so amazing, somehow had no pull in this hospital? Isn't that convenient that in a world where even UA is having their information leaked, somehow the doctor and All For One did not have an information network set up in the hospital that is so far advanced that it was able to save Hawks? Isn't that convenient? When you look at that situation, really what you see is the heroes got really, really, really lucky. Because if the doctor, being so amazing, because that's what he is, he's an amazing man. He has so many, he is able to hide a Nomu in a kindergarten. He didn't have a connect, they got lucky, they got so lucky. Now you might be saying, but Trip, they knew that they had to be careful of the doctor. That's why they picked Central Hospital, because they knew the doctor was compromised. And I would tell you, no. That is not what happened. And people had to correct me on this too, because I was a little bit confused on the timeline, or I forgot the timeline. No. Let's remind ourselves of how this actually went down. Hawks was inducted officially into the league's operations after Villain Fight in chapter 240. Him slaughtering Best Jeanist happened in chapter 231. This was what he did to get into Dobby's good graces. This was far before he found out about the doctor. The heroes did not know that the doctor was involved in all of this. So no, that's not, they literally went blind on Central Hospital, and they got ridiculously lucky that for some reason, Megalomaniac All For One never had some kind of informant and information network system set up within that hospital. Somehow the doctor wasn't sitting on the board. Somehow he had no connection. They got ridiculously lucky. My next convenience, again, it's centering on the doctor because this man is so in love with Nomus, and it just really makes me wonder things, right? Isn't it convenient that the doctor, in the course of over 3 months, never thought to check the best genist body? It is the body of the number 3 hero. Is it reasonable that this doctor never thought to replicate Best Jeanist's quirk? And the reason I bring that up is because if the doctor went to Best Jeanist, chances are he would have noted the phenomena that was applied to him, the Nomu inspired surgery, which in of itself is already like a massive plot device. Because like, how do you preserve a man for 3 months without no one noticing that he's actually not dead and he's not in a tube? How do you pull that off? I don't know. But whatever, we're not here to argue about the science. We're here to argue about the doctor. Isn't it convenient that the doctor never thought to check the body when he found out one of the best heroes was in his possession, or in the possession of the villains? Now you might say, oh, but Trip, he never had the opportunity to go and meet up with the villains. And it's like, no. He actually did, because at the end of the day, Shigaraki had to get to where the doctor was. The man has an underground network that he's able to transport Nomu to a kindergarten and unleash it up from the basement. And then you might say, well, Trip, maybe he can't do anything with the quirks if All for One's not around. And my answer to that is, if that is the case, how did the guy end up with a copy of the double quirk? When you look at the double quirk and the way he talks about the double quirk, the dialogue implies that's a recent development. So, in the assumption that the doctor is able to still copy quirks, because the double quirk, there's no way the double quirk was copied before they met All for One, and the day that the villains met All for One, you know, ignoring Shigaraki, he was captured. When was the double quirk copied? It had to be copied afterward. That's the logical thing. Unless we're saying that for some reason they had a copy of the double quirk from before. I don't know how that works. But the point of the matter is, you have the doctor there. He most likely has the quirk copying capabilities, given that he had twice his quirk. Why did he not go for Best Jeanist's quirk over the course of 3 months? I mean, at the end of the day, readers can come up with excuses to justify this, but the more you have to come up with excuses to justify why a character isn't acting as competently as they usually do, you have to draw the line somewhere. And in this case, the man has the luxury to go copy the double quirk, but he doesn't think to copy the quirk of the guy that they have sitting in one of their facilities. Yeah, right. Yeah, right. I don't believe that. I believe that happened because that was the convenient thing to happen. Moving on. Isn't it convenient that Skeptic never noticed that Hawks revived Best Jeanist? I mean, mind you, this one you can say it's negligence, but that's the problem. Like, for all these conveniences, you have to assume negligence, and we'll have a little bit of a note on that for the next one, but yeah, no, like, what's the point of having all these devices and making Hawks talk in code? He has to be so careful. But Skeptic never checks that Hawks went to this one facility that he most likely knows is under their control. What happens there? Because at the end of the day, in the chapter, they say that Best Jeanist was put into a facility and that Hawks went to revive him. I don't know about you, but that sounds like Hawks would have to have left the mansion, and it sounds like Hawks would have to done some extreme, like, little maneuvers. I mean, if I was Skeptic and I was looking at this every day and I saw Hawks was over at one of our secret morgues, I'd be thinking, like, what are you doing there? You're looking at Best Jeanist's body? Why are you looking at Best Jeanist's body? Are you feeling some guilt? Yeah, no, like, what's the point of telling me that this man is super surveilled if he gets to go and do this before D-Day, right? Isn't that kind of convenient? Moving on, like, isn't it convenient that the Safety Commission didn't tell the heroes about the Nomu mechanisms? Like, if I'm the Safety Commission and I know about this method to produce a Nomu-like death state that that the Central Hospital somehow reverse engineered from Nomu and applied it, why not tell the heroes? None of the heroes acted with the assumption that people could be put into a death state. When you look at the chapters, none of those heroes knew about that mechanism. They were discovering the mechanism in the case of Mirko, but otherwise no one knew about it. Why did the commission not give the briefing to the heroes at the last minute? And you might say, oh, maybe they don't want to leak anything out. And then I would respond, the heroes that went into the hospital knew that the doctor was the target. Was there a concern of a leak? No, probably because they told them right before they went out into the hospital. So if you can tell the heroes about the doctor, why not let them in on the secret that, hey, you know, there is a death-like mechanism. If you encounter a dead Nomu, don't just buy that. Actually, like, make sure you cut off its head, because it might actually still come back to life, because apparently we have a procedure here that Hawks can do by himself. Now, at this point, I will point out that the Public Safety Commission, we've seen them be really incompetent. Like the whole Gigantomachia, that whole idea, like just to leave him alone. For the Public Safety Commission, we actually can say they're just dumb at their jobs. We can just say they suck. And that would actually be a very good counter to that whole thing. But finally, how did Dobby find the mom? When there was so much struck from the record. Now, this one I'm not going to be mean about, because this one might just be like a future plot point. It needs to be like a little bit more elaborated. No point to attack this one when even Hawks is wondering about it. Anyway, when you look at these points, really what you ultimately have to assume at base is negligence from the parties that are actually super capable. Now, when it comes to this idea that the capacities of the characters and the needs of the story are coming into conflict, right now we're in a lucky place, because the characters that we got to be looking at as being super capable are All For One and the Doctor. As long as it stays on these two characters, we'll be fine. But it's just interesting how when we need to start answering the questions of this incredible maneuver, we're starting to get some really interesting answers. Like Central Hospital being put so forward in this chapter just tells you it's a little bit of a plot device. It's there to make things convenient. Given the incredible maneuver here, it is important to say it's actually really cool that Hawks was able to pull this one off, because it's cool when you're able to circumvent the villains that are, they're the ones who are really good at planning, and it's cool to be able to circumvent them. So like, awesome that we got to see that. And when you have Hawks pulling off such a maneuver here, using the enemy's technology against them and all that kind of stuff, the situation with Dobby becomes a little bit nicer. And I'm referring to specifically when Dobby said that Best Jeanist was dead. Now knowing that Best Jeanist was essentially dead, it's like, okay, you know what, Dobby? Actually, I can't fault you for that. I can't fault you for being played. Like, this was actually a high effort play. I can't fault you for that. And that's really good. Really like that. But at the end of the day, in terms of the criticisms, it's all locked and all directed at the conveniences that had to occur here. And as we go into the future, what we have to be seeing is if Horikoshi is going to keep doing this. Oh, also, I have one last thing to point out. It's that time that Hawks attacked Best Jeanist. So Hawks wants to tell Best Jeanist, hey buddy, I need you to pretend to be dead. And like the chapter addresses it a little bit, and I'll get to that. But hey, I need you to pretend to be dead. Why do you pull out the equivalent of a sword? You're coming to him to talk about the greater good, and you pull out the equivalent of a sword. What justification is there for that? And that actually is just... Hero Academia does this a lot. It likes making things sound or look like it's going to be worse than it actually is. Like Horikoshi's done this before. Like, we can start listing it off, right? He's done it for... the Stain arc, when Izuku hyped it up. He kind of hyped it up for Spinner when they were going into the League versus the Paranormal Liberation. Oh, sorry. Versus Redestro. He's done it with characters like Endeavor came off so badly during the first arc he was introduced in that the effects are still felt to this day. And Bakugo, if I recall correctly, Bakugo is the kind of guy that told Izuku to go jump off a building. Horikoshi always comes in hard to make things look a little bit worse than they are, and then he like has to kind of start backtracking, and it's always in the backtracking that we can see whether or not it was actually good. And this is to his own fault. It's because Horikoshi does this that when he says something's about to be really, really bad, it's like, I'm not believing you. Why would I believe you? I have a history of being burned by you trying to hype things up. Mind you, it's all relative, but like that's how I feel. And usually ignoring Horikoshi's words actually has been a lot more worthwhile when it comes to getting predictions right than listening to what he's saying. At least when it's in the sensational stuff. Anyway, moving on. Now, because the chapter was a Fallout chapter, there's actually not that many points that I have for the page-by-page walkthrough, because I feel like it's pretty simple. And usually if I feel it's pretty simple, I might be missing something. So just keep that in mind, but the page-by-page walkthrough should be over relatively quick. So page 1, the shack and the framing of the story. Yeah, no, it's just a framing page. Aside from characterization, there was nothing else that was really worthwhile on this page. Page 2, has Hawks mentioned he had a danger sense in his feathers? Actually, yes. The tingling that he's talking about on this page refers to the page in chapter 187, where it was revealed that his feathers pick up vibrations. What we see in this chapter is a Hawks that didn't fully understand what those vibrations meant, but he was like building that understanding. One more detail on this page is that Hawks' mother had a really toxic dependency type relationship. And on this page, we also got to see Hawks' father. Page 3 was the story of Hawks' birth. In this page, we can see Hawks' dad's quirk. So with his mom being able to control floating eyeballs, that most likely relays sensory information, as in like the eyeballs can see stuff and that sense of sight comes to her mind. We can paint a picture of how Hawks' quirk works. He got the feathers from his pops, and from his mom he got the ability to manipulate them, and he got the sensory interface. That is, he could receive sensory information from the feathers that his brain could process. So this is actually really cool because the mom is the one that justifies being able to control these at a distance and being able to receive information and feedback from them at a distance. I'll also note that on this page, Hawks' dad was a pretty lowbrow person, killing another person for pocket change. While this is still horrific in terms of how easily someone would be killed, this is far from the image that Dobby was insinuating when he was talking about this guy. At this page, we can also say that Tomi doesn't make eye contact with her real eyes. And actually, keep a note on that because the eye contact was pretty interesting in this chapter. Page 4, Hawks was trying to keep a hold of himself and used Endeavor as a support. So what's important here is that Hawks is one of those very rare few kids that is more aware of the situation and is aware enough of it that he's trying to hold on to himself. So that was really cool, a cool note to have for Hawks. And then we have the sudden turn on this page where the guy was arrested. And do note that this is the first time in the chapter where Tomi made actual eye contact with Hawks. She did turn away earlier when the TV had broken, but you didn't get to see her actual puke, which still created the sense that she wasn't making eye contact. But yeah, it was a really interesting little thing that Horikoshi did there with the eye contact. Also, as a quick little joke, does anyone want to say that Hawks is related to this hero because this hero looks a lot like his mother? I know some probably will try. Anyway, page 5, Endeavor caught Hawks' dad, and Hawks has a pretty good way of describing the situation in his head. A hero had made a difference in Hawks' life. This is where we should recall that Endeavor has a really high case resolution rate. Like, Endeavor takes on a lot of crime, big and small. Like, he's not the kind of person that will not do a job because it's beneath him. Like, he just wants numbers, right? At this stage, he just wanted numbers. So the man makes a giant dent. This is why losing Endeavor would cause a huge problem for current society, because you lose a significant portion of the workforce. Page 6. So page 6 shows a variation of the caged bird metaphor that Hawks used as part of his rhetoric. In this case, what he's saying is that the bird that's been kept in his cage, his mom, doesn't understand how to survive in the rest of the world. Anyway, on this page, we see mom spiraling without her support system and repeating the toxic rhetoric that the dad spewed. Now, Horikoshi did something cool here. The question she was posing was answered in this panel. He had those wings so that he could be a hero. I really enjoyed this. On page 7, we have a mini time skip. In page 7, we have a mini time skip, and we know what happened during the time skip. It's pretty much chapter 192's aftermath of it and what was shown in this chapter as well. Anyway, on this page, we have the commission offering the deal finally. Page 8, our first look at Hawks and the Genus Mobile. I was going to say that the Genus Mobile was a little bit too much, but then it turned out it actually had functionality, and it's like, okay, yeah, that's pretty cool. Page 9 is Hawks communicating with the text-to-speech app, and Best Genus once more singing the glories of Central Hospital. Again, really incredible that such a wonderful place that could save a man from purgatory is outside of All for One's realm of influence, but whatever. Anyway, this is the time to start explaining page. Page 10, we get the extra info of the facility and the timely revival, which I really wonder when exactly it happened. Like, you know, did it happen a few days before or like a few hours before? You know, if I was to make a bet, I'd say like the best time to do it is the day before. Because otherwise, I assume that the doctor has cameras everywhere, right? That he checks maybe like weekly. I mean, I don't know. Like, Horikoshi makes it very hard for me to understand the level of security that the doctor would take, given that he's running an underground criminal empire. But again, whatever. They're not in Central Hospital. Anyway, this is a page that when you look at it, you have to assume negligence, because it's like, again, how did this work out? How did this man be able to revive Best Jeanist without Skeptic finding out? Like, Skeptic has a satellite in the sky. He's tracking Hawks' every movement. Again, negligence is the best thing we have. Page 11, Best Jeanist jumps into action. Page 12 and 13, I need to go off the script for this insanity. So for page 12 and 13, I understand what is going on here. Like, really I do. And the reason that I have such a reaction to this is because it's too real. It's too real. But let's like walk through this. So these people who are giving the heroes stink eye, right? It's only been 2 days. In those 2 days, they, from what it looks like on Viz, criticized the heroes. And the heroes in this case did their best. They were up against a man with more than one quirk, which already changes the entire equation. But anyway, the heroes were up against a man with more than one quirk. Actually, 2 men with more than one quirks. They most likely saw many people die. They most likely saved many people. They most likely saw many of their co-workers die, right? So, 2 days have passed. You've criticized the heroes out of town. And already, there's villains running around taking hostages, and the reaction of 20% of the crowd is, you know what, honestly, they deserve whatever comes to them. The heroes are public servants, but they are not slaves, right? And then in the chapter, you also have the one guy who says, who needs heroes anyway? And he's hiding his little support gear. And it's like, you know, actually, I'm pro vigilantes. Like, the vigilantes that we follow are pretty good, right? But actually, in reality, what's going to happen here is that anyone that takes matters into their own hands, you know, they might have a couple of victories, but, you know, give it enough time, and then one day they might end up shooting a kid in the head. That's how this goes. That's how Horikoshi has premised penalties in Hero Academia. The example being gentle. What the hero license says is that this person has good judgment to be able to use their quirk in public. That's the promise of the hero license. It's the judgment. So when you have people just starting wielding their guns, just shooting whatever, what do you think is going to happen naturally? Like, yes, good for them if they manage to get a few victories at the beginning, but this is not going to be good. Now, mind you, all of this, again, is just a little bit too real. Like, this is, I think, how things would go down, because some people are just ultimately entitled. And I do believe that in this case, the end game for Hero Academia Society is a society where the heroes are still around, but everyone gets to be a hero in their own little way. Like, doing little things. Like, if you see a lost kid, you don't say, oh, I think a hero's gonna do it. You help the kid. Like, if you see someone needing help, you don't think, oh, a hero's gonna come to save a kid who's drowning. No, you try and do your best you do what's within your power to help out. That's the kind of society that we need to seek. Well, I think that's the kind of society that Horikoshi would be aiming for the end of Hero Academia. A society where people are able to be good people and not just offload their problems onto other people. I will say, though, in terms of proportions, to me it looks like it's mostly like older people that are upset with the current heroes. And it's like, yeah, I don't care if the older generation is having a little bit of a moment here. This one guy looked like he's so smug, like saying like, yeah, obviously this is what you should be doing. And it's like, bruh, back off, man. Back off. Everyone's having a shit situation right now. But no, it's funny. It's super funny. Again, I do think this is really good, though. Props for Horikoshi for showing the level of nuance here. I do appreciate this. Anyway, page 13, we see that Hawks' mom got paid off really, really well. Like, holy crap moly. And it only gets worse in page 14. How could one person have such an empty place? But actually, I have a pretty good reason for why she probably has such an empty place. So the emptiness probably reflects how empty Tomi was. Like, when you look at the spacing here, this is probably a woman that's uncomfortable being this rich. Which means that she might have kept some degree of... Like, she didn't let the money, like, horrifically control her. But I do want you to note something. Look how the rug is in disarray, and look how this little cabinet was emptied. So I do feel that she took whatever she had, she took it and ran away, which, I mean, obviously you would do if, like, Dobby shows up, because one, Dobby stinks, and two, he's ugly. I wouldn't want to subject that poor girl to a thug like Dobby after she got away from the first thug. Anyway, here we got a letter Now, again, I'm still curious as to how Dobby found this info, but it is still good to know that he still uses old-fashioned muscle and thug. Anyway, Hawks points out the somehow as well, so I am hoping that this is going to be a plot point and not just something that becomes unanswered and left at somehow. Page 15 has Hawks reflecting on his life as he cuts off Best Eunice's comparisons to clothing. This was interesting that he reflected on how he turned away from his mom. Good construction for that little bit of a trauma, because I didn't really think of it until he brought it up. You can understand why he maybe wouldn't have thought to help his mother at first, because he was still a kid and his mother was still this thing that he didn't want to be. But seeing him come back and reflect like, yeah, you know, maybe I could have done something a little bit different. I thought that was really good. Anyway, we got a panel of the TV, and I think this was chosen to be the symbol for his mom's cries. If you recall, earlier in the chapter, the one time that she looked away from the TV was when she was in that house and it was broken. The TV was like like a safety net for her. It does represent her basic needs. So seeing the TV there, again, it paints a picture of this woman still living in the prison that that man had created for her. So page 16, we see that the one point of light in his life with his mother was that time that they got the Endeavor plushie. So also note, this is when the two were still under the father's thumb. So she wasn't making actual eye contact with Hawks, but keeping an eye on him with her quirk. Again, really cool note, Horikoshi. Anyway, we actually knew the Endeavor toy was a bargain bin item. That was revealed during one of the volumes. But I do want to tell you a story. Endeavor being a bargain bin item led to a crazy theory on Tumblr, of course, about Hawks actually not being Endeavor's #1 fan because he was forced to buy it because Hawks looked like he was poor, so he probably couldn't buy the All Might plushie. And you know, again, that is partly true. We did see that they couldn't afford the All Might plushie, but what's important here is that Hawks made Endeavor his symbol. Hawks made Endeavor be the thing that he used to like gain strength to go through another day. And then coincidentally, Endeavor came through, and that only solidified Hawks' childlike belief in the Endeavor plushie. Anyway, page 17 is actually ridiculously important. The rhetoric of someone having their back to the wall, that's actually a rhetoric that Horikoshi has brought up in the most recent Jump Festa. So he said something about the story being about people with their backs against the wall trying to do their best, and Hawks goes in a slightly different direction, but he's calling again on the same kind of idea of someone with the back against the wall. So what you have to note here is that Hawks is kind of talking like Horikoshi. So in other words, Hawks' rhetoric is most likely going to be the narrative enforced rhetoric. And what we have here is Horikoshi invoking the idea that when the day is darkest, that's when people will rise to their truest natures. And that's especially true when we look at the light within Twice's darkness. Like, yeah, Twice ultimately terrorist adjacent. At the end of the day, he was there when everyone planned to blow up buildings, terrorist. But he did like his friends. That's the light within the darkness there. Page 18, we see Hawks being a hero and his origin event, and we have that wonderful shot of Hawks. He has his wings so that he can save people, and we get that wonderful shot of the plush, his light. That was a really cute panel. Anyway, page 19 is Hawks telling the Endeavor hate train to back off. So big page. First, the flashback panel is from 244, when Shoto was shocked that his dad had a friend who came to help him. So when he says he knows things were different, he's right. Like, he's referencing Shoto in that particular panel. What he's saying is that Shoto didn't look like a guy that hated his father. And in this case, Hawks knows what kind of look a person that doesn't like their father would have, or a person who was in a similar situation to him would have. And also in this case, Hawks probably knows what it looks like when someone has a positive in their life, given that he had a positive with his mom that he cherished. Next was the cleanup line. This one is really exciting for me because, like, what does a cleanup look like? Does Hawks have a recording that incriminates Dobby hardcore? Like, I think so. I'm really excited. So I'm excited for the Save Endeavor line. I'm excited with what they did at the end of the panels, showing that Hawks' back was, highlighted. And now we're at the end of the chapter, and what I want to say here is that Hawks is in a cool situation. Like he says, the commission is currently out of commission, most likely because their head got taken down. So this gives him more leeway to do things a little bit more like, oh shit. Like, maybe the commission doesn't want to give up the information on the recording, but now Hawks is like, commission's not around, boy. So now he's just going to dump all the information that he has. It's going to be like a WikiLeaks kind of scenario. I think that would be really cool. So I'm really excited to see Hawks going off script and actually just informing people. Like, showing people, yeah, it's traumatic, but you got to listen to the reality of the situation. I also want to see, also with Hawks saying that he wants to save Endeavor, him thinking about Shoto pretty much says that he's probably going to get involved in the Dobby situation. So it might be, we might, if we end up in a situation where we have Endeavor, Hawks, and Shoto working together against Dobby, it works here because Hawks has involved himself. Next up for the wings, I do need to say that it might be possible that Hawks' wings were actually toast, but Central Hospital being so amazing and so untainted by evil, maybe they have good stem cell research and were able to repair Hawks' back. Actually, with Central Hospital being so amazing, I'm really surprised that they never reverse engineered what happened to Mirio and were just able to somehow fix it. Because they were able to, again, they plucked Hawks out of purgatory, but hey, you know, I guess there must be a limit to godlike Central Hospital. Anyway, what happens next chapter? Man, I don't know. I'm going to tell you, I am very excited. I want to see Hawks reveal to the world how much of a douche Dobby is. Because that would be hilarious. I would love Spinner to call Dobby out, and I would love to see Toga just jump on Dobby and try to kill him. Oh, that was going to be hilarious. Yeah, nah, this is going to be a good one. Endeavor's in trouble, and Hawks, Hawks has shown that he's willing to be the bad guy in a situation. Hawks has shown that he's willing to go dirty if he has to win. So yeah, nah, man, this is going to be really exciting. I am so excited. Like, Hawks, honestly, saying that Endeavor's in trouble, this is the one guy I definitely trust 100% of the time. Because, yes, he will do bad things. But the birds are getting freaked. The birds are getting excited because I'm talking about another bird. But yeah, nah. This is going to be exciting. I do think next week we're going to be going back into the hospital. Chapter 300, it has to be something big. Hopefully we'll get some Dobby stuff. But if we go back and we're switching storylines again, if we go into Izuku's situation, that'd be cool too. Guys, let me know what you thought down below. Thank you so much for your patience, and until next time, I hope you have an absolutely great day. Oh, wait. I would also love to hear what you guys think about the conveniences. So very quickly, just to like remind you, I would love to know what you guys think about the conveniences for the hospital not being influenced by All For One. The doctor never checking on Best Jeanist. Skeptic never noticing the Hawks went to a facility to check on the Best Jeanist body. What's your thoughts on those conveniences? Are those conveniences that you can accept, or are those conveniences that, you know, kind of bother you, but like not a big deal? And, you know, if you're not bothered, no problem at all. Everyone likes different things in their stories. What I want to know is just what my viewer base cares about. Do you guys care about the conveniences, or do you just want to go along with the story without thinking too hard about it? Let me know what exactly you're feeling. Anyway, everyone, till next time, I hope you have an absolutely great day.